Hello and welcome to Putting Your Best Foot Forward, the Hiring Partners Showcase for Udacity's Intersect 2018. Today, our webinar is going to be helping you figure out exactly what it is you need to do to prep for this special event. My name is Martin, and I'm going to be your guide through tonight's presentation. We also have Kirsten in the chat. She's going to be answering from the Udacity account. So please, if you have any questions as we go through the presentation tonight, drop your questions in the chat. She'll be happy to answer them, and she'll even send some my way at the end during the Q&A. So I just want to say how much we appreciate you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your time, and we hope that you'll get a lot out of this presentation. All right, let's get started. Intersect 2018, we're going to be celebrating some lifelong learning, and all y'all are here tonight because you love to learn. That's what we're exactly doing. We're learning tonight. So a couple of points to know about the upcoming Intersect event is that it's going to be on Tuesday, March 27th. It's going to be from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and it's going to be at the Computer History Museum. Where exactly is that museum? Well, it's at 1401 North Shoreline Boulevard in Mountain View. So here's a quick snapshot of the map. Look it up on your own, figure out how you're going to get there. It's going to be really, really amazing. We have an exciting day of speakers, networking opportunities, and most importantly, we have hiring partners who are going to be floating around the event as well as at their stations waiting for you to come talk to them. One thing I do want to note is that the showcase for the hiring partners is going to be from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And prior to the event, make sure you go on your phones, whether it's Android or Apple, and download the app. This is going to give you the full itinerary for the day, and it's going to let you know where you need to be, when you need to be there, and allow you to prep ahead of time so that you can be there with plenty of time to gather all the things you need and have the conversations you want to have. All right. Now that we have all the details, now that we know all the background information for the event, let's get into exactly what you need to be putting together and preparing to have the best day possible. So a little effort goes a long way. We're going to be talking about how exactly you want to prepare prior to the event, and then what you should be doing in person once you get there. Now, event prep is a really interesting thing because a lot of times we don't know what to do, so we end up winging it. And a common theme throughout this presentation is going to be, let's try not to wing it. So organize your online and offline materials before the event. Here are the things you're going to need to have ready for the first day, here's the things that you're going to need to have ready at least one day prior to the event. So don't the night before start thinking about these things. Start thinking about them now. The first thing you're going to want to do is update your LinkedIn and all of your online profiles, including your personal portfolios, your GitHub, or whatever else you may have online that showcases your presence and your abilities. And so a lot of times what ends up happening is that folks forget to update their most recent projects, or they forget to go and put their most recent employers and everyone that you're going to meet. The first thing they're going to do is sit down and Google you, try and find your website, try and find your GitHub, try and find your LinkedIn, and see, what's out there. And they might even do it at the event. They might just pull it up on their phone. So you want to be sure to go online and make sure everything that you have out there is up to date. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to update your resume, and you're going to want it to reflect the types of jobs and opportunities that companies are recruiting for at the event. Now, we're going to get into how to research that a little bit later, find out exactly what these companies are hiring for. But you know the companies that you want to talk to, and you know the jobs that you wish you could get. So just keep that in mind and make sure that you have your materials tailored to showcase you in the best light for those opportunities. So if you really want a certain position, make sure that's called out and that the skill set that is needed for that role is showcased both online and in your resume. I also recommend that you print lots of copies. Um, this is something that we hear come up quite often with hiring partners, is that folks will show up at the event, but they just won't have all their content ready. They won't have things to leave behind. They won't have stuff for the employer to use to follow up with. So make sure you print off lots of copies and have it ready to go. Additionally, you're going to want to research these companies and you're going to want to have questions ready. A good thing for you to do is to write out the questions you have. Literally sit down and say, what are the things about the companies, the industries, the technologies? What are the things that I'm most interested in? And then when you write them down, you can actually sit and practice them when you're in the Uber on the way there, or when you're, sitting there waiting to go talk to someone. You can actually go through the questions that you've written down and make sure that they're fresh in your mind. Finally, you want to lay out your clothes the day before. You want to make sure they're clean and ready to go, so you're not searching for something to wear on your way out the door. A great thing to do here is also map out how you're going to get to the event. A lot of times people will type it into their Lyft and then all of a sudden realize, oh no, they did not plan right and they missed that first talk. So give yourself ample time, plan things out the day before, make sure you know what you're going to wear and all your clothes is clean and ready to go, and get yourself, all set up so that you can have a very calm and collected morning as you head to that event. Once you get to the event, you're going to really want to have some essentials with you. Specifically, you want to have a pen and notebook to collect notes. Now, there's a good chance that companies are going to be giving out pens and notepads while you're there, but you don't want to find yourself holding a Lyft notebook and pen while chatting with the recruiters at Uber. So if you can bring one of your own, that's definitely going to be a little bit better than sort of having those different brands competing in your hands, right? And so a lot of folks will tend to bring a legal pad, and I would actually advise against that. I think it can get a little clumsy and a little cumbersome when you're trying to hold a legal pad and maybe your phone and shaking people's hands. It's good to get some sort of pocket notebook or some sort of handheld notebook that you can take notes on as you're talking. And this is really important to have as well, because when you're chatting with the people at the companies, you want to jot down little ideas of things to follow up with them on. So be sure to be on top of this and have it with you and ready to go. Now, you'll also want to have some sort of bag with you. Um, I actually get in a lot of trouble with this. I tend to carry a big backpack everywhere I go, and it gets me in trouble because I tend to run into people with it and knock things over. So if you're someone like me who typically runs around with a big bulky backpack that knocks things off tables, see if you can find a smaller backpack or maybe a satchel that you can carry with you. Um, it's really good to, if you have an over the shoulder strap bag, it's really good to be able to reach in, pull out what you need, and then put it back in the bag really quick. If someone hands you something, you can quickly put it away without taking the whole backpack off and stopping traffic and things like that. There's going to be a lot of people around, and you want to make sure that you can navigate the crowd without too much difficulty. And then another piece, if you have business cards, I would definitely recommend that you bring a pocket full to give out. This is a really important thing that we sometimes is overlooked in the night before packing for an event like this. But it is the quickest, easiest thing to give to someone. And the nice thing about a business card is that if you give someone your business card and they give you theirs, you can jot down notes on the back of that business card, put it into your folder, and move on. If you want to get a list of the full hiring partners, um, I highly recommend downloading the Intersect app. And I'll actually go back. I meant to mention that on this page a little bit in more detail. So before the showcase, if you just go online, grab the app, download it, it will have all the information that you need for the event. And we'll talk about some of the other hiring partners later in the presentation as well. And then finally, again, bring lots of resumes. And if you can put these in a hard folder or some sort of pad folio in your bag, that's going to be extremely important. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people hand over crumpled up resumes to a hiring partner. And it just, we're trying to get you to put your best foot forward. So make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep things crisp, keep things looking good, keep the conversation going, and definitely follow up with your notes at the end. All right, now dress code. This is a question that comes up fairly often. And while there's no official dress code for the event, um, a couple things we can say is that it's going to be more casual than it will be formal. I doubt there's going to be a ton of people in suits, although you might see it. Um, and the best way to sort of go about navigating sort of the way to dress at one of these events is to go smart casual. This is a bit of a buzzword, but basically what it means is a step away from business casual. It still looks very sharp, but it's not necessarily like suit or stuffy clothes kind of a look. As you can see here, a few examples. A nice button down with slacks. You could even use a nice pair of jeans if you don't have slacks. A blazer and a vest always go over well. I'll probably be wearing a vest. I just have one I really like from a few years ago, and I'm going to be wearing it in one of these rare instances that you can. And so these are the kinds of things that you can, test out, try on a couple outfits, see what feels good. And whatever you wear, just make sure you feel confident in it and comfortable in it so that you're not, shifting around all day. Make sure that you can go there and feel good about yourself. All right, let's leave winging it to the birds and let's do some research. To the question that's already come through the chat, the big reveal, here's some of the companies that are going to be there. Of course, there's going to be more than this, but here's just a quick snapshot. We got Samsung, Google, we've got Facebook, Kitty Hawk, Continental, Lyft. These are just a small snapshot of the companies that you're going to get to chat with at the event. So again, go to the app, download the app, and check out all the hiring partners, because what you're going to find is that there's a lot of companies that you've got interest in who are going to be at this event. It's never too early to start doing your research and homework on these companies. There is, with every company, there is a just well of great information that you can start looking into. One thing I'd recommend as you start doing your research is to try and bucket the hiring partners into industries, right? So let's say you take Lyft and Uber, okay, so, the rideshare industry. So the way you would break down your research is you would do industry research. What are the newest things happening in that industry? There have been some things in the news lately that have been not so great in that industry. So knowing those facts are going to be good to know. What new technologies are coming out in that industry? And then you get down to the granular level. What is Lyft doing different than Uber? What are their competitors up to? What are their partners up to? How is this industry expanding? And then go over and do the same with Samsung and their industry, or IBM Watson and their industry. It's just a great way to sort of say, okay, not only do I have knowledge of what this company is doing and what they need and what problems they're trying to solve, but also I understand how this plays into the entire framework of the industry at large. And I can see how they're trying to differentiate themselves and make their own impact. All right, now let's get into the research a little bit more deeply. You really, really want to do your research ahead of time. So where's a couple of good places to start? I remember back in college, a friend came up to me about 10 minutes before a career fair that we were heading into, and he asked, "Hey man, what companies are in there?" Uh, this is what I want you to avoid. Needless to say, he did not get a job that day. He had a 4-page resume for the 2 jobs that he had had up to that point in college. And yeah, he just wasn't prepared. So I'd love it for y'all to do your homework and make sure that you are well informed as you go about this event. Um, by doing this, you're going to know who to talk to, what to say, and most importantly, what questions to ask. Trying to do this on the fly is really pretty tough. And the end goal is that you're going to want to have some great conversations with these companies. Again, a lot of times we get in there and we go straight to the idea of, I need a job, right? And when we're in that me mindset, we tend to forget that the whole purpose of the job that we're looking to get is to help the company achieve a goal. And so that's the kind of stuff that I want you to be looking for as you're doing your research. So your end goal is to have great conversations with the people at the hiring event about what they're up to, what the company's up to, and what the industry is up to. You want to find out what they're working on and how you can help. So where do you do this research? Well, the typical place that people start is just by Googling the company's name, right? See what comes up. Maybe some news articles, maybe some blogs about it. Then you check out the company website. Most likely you're heading over to the jobs page to see what jobs they have open. That's a great starting point. You get to get an idea of, do they have needs in the areas where you're an expert or where you have the skill set that can help? And then you maybe jump over to their blog. What's on their blog? What sort of things have they been writing about their industry, about their company? Any recent news that they've put up in their press releases or anything like that? But one area that folks tend to forget about is YouTube and podcasts. Now, I love YouTube because companies are constantly putting up videos, and there might be videos from 5, 10 years ago, and you can almost see the evolution of their mission statement, the evolution of their company's look and feel, the evolution of their culture in these videos over time. And you can, most of them are all dated. And so you can actually see, oh, 4 years ago, they were really focused on this. How did that turn out for them? Maybe that's something I could bring up during the conversation. And you can also find interviews with the C-level people at the company and see what they're saying about the company, right? You want to look for mission. You want to look for values. You want to look for their growth. You want to look for all those different things that inform you about where the company is, where they're coming from, and where they're headed. Podcasts are also great. A lot of these companies have CEOs and leaders who have been interviewed on different podcasts, and you can get some really, really fantastic information out of those interviews if you go find them. I've definitely seen people do that, especially for interviews. When they actually found the CEO's interview on a podcast, brought it up in the interview, and got the job. And so these are the types of things to start thinking about to go outside of the box, not just the corporate speak that's on their website, but the more layman speak that they use in conversation out in the world. And this brings me to informational interviews. Informational interviews are a really important thing that you should be doing throughout your job search, but especially when it comes to an event like this, if you have the time and you're able to, try and find some people at these companies who are not going to be on the hiring team. Maybe just some people who have the job title that you wish you had, some people who you wish you could work with in the future. They might not be at this event, but by reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm about to head to this Intersect event with Udacity. I noticed that you work as whatever the role might be at the company. And just ask them, do you have time to share some thoughts about the company? I know I'm going to be chatting with some of your hiring team, and I would just love to learn a little bit about what you like about the company and what you do, and make it all about them, right? If you just chat with them and just figure out that this person is someone who is just the next step ahead of you, right? They have the role that you wish you had. They're going to have all the best insights, and then you're going to be able to go to this into this conversation with all the best questions, all the best information at your fingertips. And one great way to be able to find people, if you go to LinkedIn, you can search by company name, and you can look at their employee list. And then if you can't send them a LinkedIn in mail, I highly recommend trying one of the sites like findthat.email or any of the similar sites of that sort. If you just type in yellow pages for emails or something like that, you'll find a lot of resources that help you find people's email addresses. And again, don't spam people, but ask them for 15 minutes of their time, jump on a quick call, and just try and learn a little bit about the industry, their work, and how their work is impacting the company and the industry at large. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about what to look for. Um, and really, at the end of the day, and I want to hit this one more time before we leave this slide, the most important thing for you to be talking to the company about is what are they up to and how can your skill sets help them? And I think that that's just an exchange as we go into all these conversations is to move from having a me focused conversation to a them focused conversation, a value focused conversation. So if you have a good understanding of where the industries are headed and where these companies are headed and what the projects are that these roles that you're hoping to fill are contributing, then you're going to find yourself in a great position to have those conversations of, well, here's what I've done in the past, and here's how it can help you get to these big goals. It's just a really great mindset to go into this event with. All right, next up, how are you going to prioritize and organize your interactions? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify your practice companies. Um, I don't really like saying practice companies, but the truth of the matter is that not every company is going to be at the top of your list. So you want to start with some that are maybe not in the industry that you're most interested in, or maybe not quite the company, or maybe they just don't have the job title available in their search right now. Everything that you've got going into this event, you walk up to one of the other ones and sort of let the first conversation just fall out of you and let all that stress kind of melt off. Like it's okay to not have every single conversation be 100% perfect. So, talk to a few people, loosen up, be able to walk around and figure out how to calm down before going up to the companies that you most want to talk to. I would say save your dream companies for the middle of your time in the room. Start with a couple that will help you relax, go to your dream companies, and then end with the ones who you want to get to but aren't necessarily at the top. And I highly recommend not leaving until you've talked to all the companies that you've put on your list and done research on. It's really important to take advantage of these opportunities when they're there and go above and beyond to make sure that you're um, grabbing all the value you can. And a good thing to do as you talk to each one of these companies, write down little notes, again, in your notebook, on the back of business cards, of one thing that you want to follow up with them about, because this is going to be something that you need as you follow up within the next 24 hours. All right. Now, the event setup, there's going to be 30 company booths and 400 students walking through the space. It's a lot of people. Students can approach hiring reps at the booths. You can give your pitch. You can start conversations. They're not going anywhere. They're sitting in those booths. So as you walk in, just know it's going to be a busy room and there might be some lines that form. 30 companies, 400 students, there's lots of people, right? So take your time, find a place to gather your bearings, maybe even talk to some of the other people in the room. I'm sure if you grab anyone else and you say, hey, do you want to practice your elevator pitch or your introduction? People will jump at it because we're all trying to get comfortable in these different situations, right? We have a balcony in the back for you to go get some air if you really need it. Maybe you had a conversation that didn't go as well as you wanted. You're flush in the face and you just want to go outside and relax for a second, breathe some air, go for it. Like this is how you can navigate through this room and make sure that you're doing it in the way that is best for what you need. All right. And speaking of going up to someone in the room and practicing, how can you practice on your own? How can you communicate with confidence? Well, the first thing, we're going to have a series of elevator pitch. Uh, we're going to go deep into the elevator pitch here. So I've broken it out into parts so that we can help you make the best impression possible. And so the first thing I want to point out here is that before you even pitch, you want to be thinking about how to practice, right? It's not about just having this really long, detailed explanation of your education and goals and everything. It really just comes from trying in lots of different ways to talk about the concepts of the industry and how you want to have an impact. So it's good to just, talk with some friends, talk with your family members. The more you practice, the better. And the more you practice without a script, the better. I actually would recommend that instead of writing everything out verbatim, you write it down as bullet points. Here are the top 3 things I want to communicate in each conversation that I have. If I can leave the conversation with having said 2 of those 3 things, then I've done a great job. So run through your talking points. Look up questions and prepare for answers, right? So you might, if you go on to the Muse or if you go on to any of these websites that have lists of questions to expect, the one that you'll get the most is tell me about yourself. Not even a question, but it's what everyone says because they're not sure what to say. So don't worry about it. Everyone gets asked that question and everyone fumbles over it. But what you can do is say, all right, well, if I'm going to be asked that question, how can I best answer it? Well, tell me about yourself. What is it that they really want to know? Well, they want to know why you're there, and they want to know what it is that you have in common with them. So if you can form a commonality, a connection between the 2 of you, then you're going to be moving in the right direction. So again, think about the talking points. Maybe self-driving cars are the thing you're most interested in. Maybe usability is the thing you're most interested in. Maybe AI is the thing you're most interested in. What is the thing you're most interested in? And that's how you can actually answer the question. Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm really excited to be at this event because of all these new things happening in artificial intelligence. Have you been to X talk and use the event to help fill the conversation? What talks have you been to? What people have you met? What ideas have you been exposed to? All of these things can really go back into your pitch and make you even stronger. Now, as you're looking up these questions and trying to practice on your own and practicing with friends and family, I'd also recommend that you record yourself and listen back to your recordings. There's something to be said about hearing yourself in the third person and realizing, oh, I say a lot, or and here I am saying I'm kind of critiquing myself as we go through this presentation, right? And to go back and say, all right, maybe that story that I tried to tell went on too long, or maybe I tried to explain a project I worked on and I just didn't really get the point across. The more you hear yourself and then improve your abilities, the better. And then I want to point out, really stressing on this, keep your introduction short and get into the conversation. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times we tend to have the introduction be the entire thing, and it's overwhelming for someone. Someone says, tell me about yourself, and suddenly they get a 10-minute conversation or a 10-minute lecture on your entire history of education, first job, second job, and so on. That's not exactly the conversation we want to be setting up here. So when I say keep it short, say, this is what I'm interested in. This is what about the event I'm really excited about. Maybe you say I'm looking for roles at these types of companies with these titles, and then ask them a question. Don't just stop. Ask them a question. Get them engaged. That's the best way to get a conversation going. Is when you're asked a question, answer it, and then follow it up with another question. And now you're going back and forth. I apologize for this career counselor piece that's still in the presentation. This is actually from a previous version, and so there actually won't be necessarily this bullet here, but there will be a career coaching section at the event. So again, check your app, find that in the schedule, and go check out the careers area as well, because there will be coaching sessions happening, just not these 30 minutes ones that are scheduled ahead of time. So Go there, check it out. All these things are going to be kind of happening in tandem. So be sure to look at the schedule and plan out your day accordingly. And the key things that I want you to leave this slide with is number one, introduce yourself, short, sweet, to the point. This is my name, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm looking to learn more about. Here's the questions that I have, and then have a great conversation with the companies that you're talking to. All right. What is it that you will want to say as you're chatting with these companies? Well, you're going to want to clearly state what type of role you're looking for. You're going to want to explain your interest in the field. If you've taken a nano degree, you're going to want to talk about the nano degree, and you're going to want to say, well, here are the things that I've studied and what I think is so interesting about them. You want to elaborate on this and talk about the space in general, the industry in general. I think that that's a really great way to go. And then you want to articulate your strongest, most recent projects potentially. Say, oh, I worked on building X, Y, and Z, and I'm really interested in learning, new languages, maybe Python, Java, whatever it is that your specialty is. I know everyone's doing different things and everyone's here for different reasons. And then you want to share maybe some soft skills. This one, I would say hold back a little bit on jumping right into talking about your soft skills right away, but it's good to know what your strengths and weaknesses are in case you get that deep into the conversation. Check out this website, 16personalities.com. They have a 15-minute quiz that's free, and it'll give you a really great breakdown of how you interact in the workplace, what your strengths and weaknesses are, just good things to know as you're prepping so that you feel confident in yourself. And one great thing I love about this analysis is that there is a strength to being an introvert. There's a strength to being an extrovert. Not every team needs an introvert or needs an extrovert on it, right? If you have a team full of extroverts, you need an introvert who will, listen and take notes, and so and share them with the team later. And so you can really get into the details here and say, well, not only is there a technical value that I bring to this company, my actual skills and my ability to do the job, but also there is a cultural skill set that I bring to this company, and that can come from your personality tests. All right, now in order to make a great impression, we really need to ask questions, and this is something that I'm going to really push on, because what I find is a lot of times the way conversations go, especially at networking events and in interactions like these, is someone says, "Hi, tell me about yourself." The other person answers that question and then goes silent. And then there's some awkward, maybe back and forth of, this food's good. Do you know where the food table is? And things like that. And it gets really strange. So you want to really put the ball back into the recruiter's hands. You want to say, hey, this is who I am. What is it that you found most interesting at this event? Or what are the types of things you're looking for at this event? Or what are some of the best conversations you've had today? Right? There's a lot of open-ended questions that you can ask that will really engage them. And you might talk about the job, you might talk about the industry, you might talk about a new piece of technology. There's no right or wrong way to do this, as long as you're making a connection, getting their information, and following up with them after the event. So open-ended questions are the best way to go. Ask them things you're actually curious about, and ask them about their perspective on those ideas. So if there's something really interesting happening in AI, ask them what they think of it. You might find they're a wealth of information about the company as well, and you can really get a good back and forth going. What you want to stay away from is yes or no questions, like, did you enjoy the talk? That's a yes or no question. Instead, say, what was it about, some of the talks that we're watching on the TVs all over the event? What was it about one of these talks that really caught your eye if you've gotten a chance to see? And here's just a couple of examples. What about the company are they most excited about? Maybe there's a new initiative that the company's working on, or a new direction they're heading in. Where do they see the industry moving in the future? Not just the company, but the whole industry. Is it going to be affected by a new tech change? What technologies do they feel are the most impactful? And what parts of the business are growing fastest, and why? And the reason you want to ask open-ended questions like this is because it shows that you think beyond just the job that you want. You're not only trying to solve your problem, which is getting a job, but you're trying to solve their problem, which is making this company better and bigger and grow as they move into the future. And the last thing I want to touch on is body language. So I don't know if any of you have seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk about power poses. I got it on right there. She's looking real, just strong on stage, right? Um, there's a few things that you can do to really increase the impact that you have during the conversation, not only in what you say, but how you say it. And so you want to shake hands at the beginning and end of each conversation that you have. When you shake hands, you want to make eye contact and you want to keep your attention on the recruiter at the booth. If you're constantly moving and shifting and looking away or looking at your feet or not looking at them, it starts to become a tougher conversation to have. So make sure you're keeping your attention on the people in the booth. Give them a big smile when you walk up and give them a smile when you walk away. You don't have to hold a big grin on your face the whole time you're there, but it's really good to just keep a positive attitude and, hold your shoulders back, stand straight, lean in, make sure you're speaking clearly and that you can be heard. It could get pretty loud in that room. Like we said, 30 booths, 400 people. You want to make sure that you're cutting through the noise and able to get your points across. Now, the key thing as you're leaving is you need to get the recruiter's information and you need to follow up within 24 hours. You want to thank them for their time. You want to mention something that you talked about. The chances of them remembering you are fairly low because they're going to meet so many people, but that's okay. Mention something that you talked to them about or an idea that came up, and then suggest a time to chat. And this is the tough one because a lot of times we're afraid to do that. We say, thank you, let me know when, let me know what the next steps are. Well, recruiters have lots and lots of people to talk to, right? And the people at this event are going to have lots and lots of people to talk to. So they need your help. They need your help in guiding the next step. So if you say, I'm really excited to chat, do you have time next week, Wednesday at 2 p.m. to continue our conversation? You'll find that you'll get a much better response rate. And I mean, like from 0 to 30% improvement in your response rate. So definitely take the time to follow up and be specific in your ask. What you want out of this conversation is a deeper conversation. Not the next thing that you get after this event won't be an interview necessarily. It could be, but it won't necessarily be an interview. But what you can do is definitely set up the next conversation. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly certain that there's going to be a lot of items being given away by the companies at this event. Sometimes it's USB drives, sometimes it's stress balls, sometimes it's different things like that. These can start to get pretty cumbersome as you walk around and chat with all the companies, and you have too many pieces of candy at each one of the booths. So watch out with these because it's something that if you got that satchel bag, you can just toss it in there, no worries, out of sight, out of mind. But if you're constantly taking a backpack off or trying to hold it while shaking someone's hand, or dropping it at the start of a conversation, it can get cumbersome. So don't feel bad if you need to put them off to the side or not grab them or things like that. It's just something that as you're going through the event, you'll realize kind of sneaks up on you. And so we just want to make sure that you're ready. And if it does, just put it to the side, grab your notebook again, grab your business cards and your resumes and get back in line. And then when you're in line, what you want to do is you want to practice your pitch. Practice it in your head, think about different questions, look through the notes that you have in your notebook, and listen to what's happening around you. This is an interesting one because sometimes we get too much in our head. Actually listen to the conversations that the people in front of you and around you are having. It might give you some ideas of good questions to ask or topics to discuss. And then a key thing here, this is going to be a long day. And if you're there for the whole thing, you're going to need to take breaks. Aside from just lunch, be sure to, take a second in between conversations, Write down your notes, compose yourself, do a little bit of like, check your notes for the next thing that you want to ask the next company. Breathe, get ready, and go talk to the next one. It's really cool if you have friends that are going to the event, but even if you don't, once you enter into this um, hiring partner area, everyone is there for the same reason. So if you're feeling stressed out, other people are feeling stressed out. If you want to practice your talk, if you want to practice your pitch, other people want to practice their pitch. If you want to practice like shaking hands and asking questions, other people will very likely want to do that too. So don't feel weird about going up to people and asking to partner up and say like, hey, we're gonna go like I see you're about to go talk to a bunch of companies. Want to chat about what companies are here and maybe strategize or help each other out. It's not a bad thing to do. And then of course take breaks. Get water when you need it. Find a table to review your notes. Jot down notes after each conversation and practice questions in the hallway with friends. All right, now your next steps. This is the big one. Don't let it end at the career fair. You want to number one, you want to download the app so you have all the companies' names and all the information again, and make sure you have that with you. And you want to, of course, make sure you get there in time. But then afterward, when you leave that conversation, leave your information. Make sure that they have your resume or your business card, and make sure that they can get in touch with you if they need to. Make sure everything in your business, in your resume, leads back to your profiles online so that they know who you are and your name doesn't get lost in Google. And then be sure to get their information. You want to get their names and their business cards. And again, jot down little notes of the things you talked about or the things that you found interesting about the company. You must send a thank you email within 24 hours. Now, this is something that, if you get outside the event, sometimes we forget. We put the business cards in our backpack, find them a month later, and then we try to follow up. It's too late. So be really on top of this and say, who were the people that I had the best conversations with? Where is their information? What notes do I have about them? And how can I follow up? And if you don't hear back right away, that's okay. These recruiters are going to have a lot of people reaching out after the event. So just, you got your first one in the first 24 hours. If you don't hear back, give them another email a week later and see how they're doing. And then after that, if you don't hear, give them 2 weeks and check in again. Companies like persistence, so don't feel bad about pushing and trying to stay in touch. All right, so we've got about 15 minutes left in the presentation today, and I want to open it up for any questions that might be happening in the chat. We've got Kirsten there, and she is collecting anything that is on your mind. I know we went through that fairly quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we had a lot of time within the hour. So what questions are on your mind? How many resumes would be a good number for Intersect? 50 should be enough, right? I would say 50 should be enough. I think that's a good printout amount. There's 31 companies. Better to have more than less. It never hurts to have more. The likelihood of you giving out even all 31 of them is probably fairly low. But I would say 50 is a solid number to go with. Question 2. I'm not job ready yet. Does it make sense for me to meet the recruiters? 100%. Now, this is a big one. Networking and anything that you're doing with the job search that's exploratory, you really have to think about it from a learning perspective. I think too often we go into the job search thinking, I need to be the expert in this field. I need to have all the answers. And it's just not true, because what ends up happening is when you go in with that mindset is that a new piece of information is presented and we get caught off guard, and then we realize we're not an expert, and then we get a little bit worried and nervous, and the whole conversation falls apart. So what you want to do is you want to root everything that you talk about from the perspective of, I'm looking to understand and I'm extremely curious. So if you are excited and curious, everything else will kind of feed outward from there, right? So if you're not job ready, when you talk to these companies, what could you ask them? You could say, what is it you're looking for in a candidate who would be amazing at this role, right? They'll say, oh, we're looking for someone who's really outgoing, XYZ, really good in the culture. Um, then you could say, well, what technologies do you think are the most important to be able to do this role well? And they could say, oh, well, we primarily use these technologies. We don't really use these technologies. And all of this information is valuable information when you go back and apply for the job. Because what you'll find is that, okay, well, I realized that when they wrote their job description, they included 10 different technologies on there, 10 different softwares, right? Well, I talked to the hiring person and they said only 3 of these are actually important. Now you have more information. So 100% it makes sense to go meet the recruiters. Don't feel like you have to impress or come off as an expert in the room. Curiosity and conversation beats you being a know-it-all any day. Will we send these slides and video out after the event? Yes, we will be sending this video out to y'all to rewatch, and the video has all the slides. And I'm not sure if we'll be sharing the actual Google slides, but the video for sure. So I'll double check on that. The list of hiring partners is going to be in the app. So go back to that app and make sure you download it. It's going to be the most helpful thing for you on the day of Intersect. It's going to tell you where to go, when to be there, who's going to be talking. It's going to be really great. So just right now, I'll give you a minute as we're sitting here. Everyone on this call, pull out your app, pull out your phone, open up your app store on whatever device you've got, and let's download it right now. All right. I hope you've all downloaded the app. How should I approach the career part of the conference if I already have a job and am not actively looking? I think the same way as the person who doesn't feel job ready. Go in with questions. What are the things about your industry that you're working on that you find most fascinating? What are the competitors that are maybe at the event? Who 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 your company competes with? Ask them questions. What are the cool things that you think are happening that you want to know more about? And so again, just take on that excited curiosity mentality and get out there and figure out, it never hurts to build your network even when you're working. So the more knowledge you can gain and the more people you can talk to, the better. And I believe that there's a few other things that were shared. Check out the breakout sessions, the ND Lounge. Get a headshot. That's always a great thing. I actually got a headshot at a tech party after Tech Week in Chicago, and it was a really wacky scene in the room, but the headshot came out phenomenal. So definitely go check that out. I think that's a really good way to go. And apparently there's a self-driving car that you get to ride in. So keep an eye out for that. The career counseling piece. So there is going to be a career center that's going to be open. The reason I hesitated on that career counseling slide is just because that was from a previous presentation that I had, and I just wanted to make sure I was speaking correctly to it. There is a career center, and there will be coaches there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in one of those hot seats, coaching people as they're going through the event. So take a look at the app, pull it up, go find the career center section of the app, and come on by. Come talk to us. We're here to help. Should I include a photo in a hard printed resume? Ooh, this is a really interesting question. You know, I go back and forth on this one since I have a background in design, and I've definitely put my photo on a resume before. I believe I actually put my photo on the resume that I gave to Udacity back in the day. But it's sort of a gray area. If you're a designer, I think it's more appropriate. If you are If you are hesitant about it in any way, I would say skip it. And I would say err on the side of simplicity. And that's actually what I would tell myself as well. That is no longer what my resume looks like, and that's no longer, I no longer have my picture attached or included in the hard print. So I would always err on the side of keeping it simple over trying to get too fancy, because these folks are going to be sifting through these pretty quick. Um, it's good to have a pop of color. It's good to, um, you know, have a resume that you feel represents you and looks good. But a resume isn't going to make or break the job for you. Um, it's just one of many things that you need to do in the job search. So think about the resume as more of a check mark that says that you're able to create a resume that looks professional and has the information necessary, and then focus more of your time on the conversation you're going to have. So instead of spending more time, and this is actually something I like to call productive procrastination, when you spend all your time tweaking your resume instead of practicing for the conversation, that's productive procrastination. What if I'm not interested in developer roles? Let's say interested in technical PM or PM roles. Can I talk to hiring managers? Well, let me think about this for a second. Yes, I think there's a number of things you can do. So going back to the slide about informational interviews, prior to the event, look up the companies that are going to be there and go on LinkedIn. Look up the companies on LinkedIn, check out their employee list, and then see who on their employee list is a PM and reach out to a couple of them. See see if you can get 3 to 5 conversations with people who have that job already. Talk to them about what they do, talk to them about the industry, talk to them about how they got their job and what they like about it. Make it all about them. And then when you get to the event, do your due diligence. If you go on the website and you see that they are hiring for those roles, um, ask who would be the best person to talk to. It could be the person at the booth, but they might know who the right person to talk to is. So I don't think it ever hurts, because at the worst case scenario, you talk to them about the culture, right? Or you talk to them about some of the big initiatives they have going on. And then when you get down to the role level, because we don't want to start by talking about the role, we want to start by talking about the company and what the recruiter is interested in, and having a conversation. And then when you get to the end and say, "Hey, I'm looking for more PM roles. Who would be the best person to talk to?" That's where you might get some good referrals. All right. I'll wait a second in case any other questions come through, but I think we're just about ready to wrap up in the last 5 minutes here. If you've got anything else burning on your mind that you'd like to get answered, please drop the question now. Ooh, here's a good one. I'm based in New York, but I'm open to relocation. Should I state my city of residence in my resume? I think this is a great question. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. There's no one perfect way, but I think one of the best things to do is put open to relocation at the top of your resume, or saying if you know you're going to move to a new city. So I had a student who knew that they were going to California no matter what. So they said moving to California on this date. And what that did was it said to the company, even if you can't relocate me, I'm going to be there anyway. And so it took all doubt of like, oh, we have to relocate this person, we have to pay money, we have to do all these different things. It just said, I'm going to be in California either way. And just take all the doubt off the table. Or just leave nothing. That's another option too. Just don't say anything about location. Granted, they're going to Google you, but hopefully you're following up with a personal email. And in that personal email, you can say, I'm going to be moving out to California, and I'm really excited to chat with you. I'm back in New York right now. When would be a good time to jump on the phone? Or don't even say when. Say, would you be able to jump on the phone next week at 2 p.m. on Wednesday? All right. Will there be any preference when a recruiter is speaking to a new grad versus someone who's currently employed? If so, what should the currently employed person prepare differently? I don't think there will be too much of a difference in preference. Um, I think it depends on the role you're going for, the level of that role, and the conversation should really be focused in the same way. It should be focused on the industry, the company, the problems that you can solve. Um, yeah, I really don't see a big difference there. I think they're trying to find the person who's most excited and curious. And if you can be the most excited and curious, then you're going to stand out. So I would probably approach it the same way, and maybe just, in your conversation, say, here's some of the things that I'm currently working on. It almost puts you at an advantage because you can talk about your current work. So you can say, I'm currently working on projects doing X, Y, and Z. I see how this relates to what you're trying to do in insert industry. And so that might be sometimes it's better to have things going on because then you can talk about those things. And if you're a student, it's really great to talk about the projects you're doing, personal projects, group projects, anything you're doing online in an online forum or on GitHub or something like that. So definitely, approach all of these conversations with excitement, curiosity, and a real want to solve problems for the company that you're talking to. Every company has problems. Every company wants to grow. How can you help them grow? And on that note, I will wrap today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at careers. Well, not all of your students, so apologies for that. Shoot me an email at martin.mcgovern@udacity.com. And I look forward to chatting with you all soon and seeing you at Intersect. Have a great rest of the day.